Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ready to start another great race in the Precision Racing League. Green flag flies, we're underway. Side by side, door-to-door contact. Incredible action here in the PRL. And they come together. After all the fighting, it ends in tears.
Continue to adapt tonight. We look to see how things play out for the Precision Racing League as it gets ready to go road racing once more for its GT3 Fixed Series at iRacing's virtual Brands Hatch circuit. Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Britz alongside Reese Gardner. Real Augustin Cisneros producing as we get set for what's going to be an interesting one. A tight, confined upper road course and lots of potential for action, Reese. It should be a fun night.
Absolutely. Brands Hatch is one of the most iconic circuits in the UK, host of the British Grand Prix from the 1960s through to the 1980s, alternating with Silverstone. So it's definitely got a lot of racing pedigree, this place. The layout's changed a couple of times over the years, but it maintains its classic fast nature. We're running the Grand Prix loop, which means we have a fast blast through the woods, over the hills. It's so much fun to drive around this place. Overtaking opportunities can be few and far between, but the Druid's hairpin is where we're expecting most of the moves to be made.
Especially with how these drivers have played things out so far in the practice session, that's where it's been most active today. This in turn is our fourth round of the season so far, with Spa, Nürburgring, and more on the docket still. Could go any direction with the flurry of different racetracks and historic circuits on that note. The drivers still have to forsake and partake in if they want to be able to compete in the Fixed and Sprint Series championships. Speaking of the championships so far, Jim Feliz putting on some dominating performances so far. He leads the way in the pro standings so far with a win to his side, but 3 top 5s. He's the only driver to do so in this series. Also with a pole and a fastest lap that sees him ahead of Quarin, along with Evan McKay, Luke Wallace, and Andrew Trinket amongst your top 5 in the pro standings coming into today's action. Tyler Graff all the way back in 6th. You also have the AM side that's also been somewhat heating up. Remember, these drivers scoring the same points on the racetrack. That's going to be a conversation point for this one, Reese. So far, the pro standings have been interesting, but the AM side sees Jared Deploy, the one with the advantage.
Yeah, indeed. Deploy only 9 points ahead of Pete Measure for 2nd place, and Colin McKenzie and Sean Provost there on equal points. 4 rounds into the season, seeing these kinds of standings, it really gets me going for the final half of the season. It's certainly going to be fantastic to see how these standings stack out coming out of this round.
And keep in mind the team side, well, if you're with SRT, you're likely having a very fun time. Yellow, blue, black, and orange, all amongst your top 4 so far, and then SRT White back in 6th. White Cranky Esports is the disruptor when it comes to the team flow so far. Outright domination from SRT, but you also throw in the mix Michigan GT3 Racing has a chance to potentially jump up to 6th, but on how things play out today, same for Lunatic Racing. They all remain pretty tight. You also have BNO Carlomania that's trying to battle it out for 9th with SGE Esports and their team standing fight so far coming into this round. But that's a look at the team standings. Tonight's action brought to you in part by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by Passion Sim Racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available on the market today. All your members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Brace Box offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts. For the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and get a 5% discount. Use the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. For every nuance, ensure you put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit Moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby at up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And by Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Speaking of the drivers on the racetrack, right now 39 are entered for tonight's round for the fixed series, and so far, most of the field is within about 1 second in qualifying. It's Luke Wallace that tops them all so far at 122.644. Brett Thurman, Israel Osborne, amongst those keeping things very tight as well. Jim Feliz off by a 10th so far.
Yeah, Jim Feliz, it's a very narrow gap, isn't it? But he's down in 6th spot, only 1.5 tenths down. So if he can find something in these final few minutes, then that'll obviously be good for him, but it's going to be difficult with the track being as cramped as it is. Brands Hatch, of course, a Grand Prix circuit through and through, but it's a bit short in situations like this, with 39 cars out there all trying to set times. Difficult to find the clear air.
And difficult for some, it seems, to be able to make sure they're incident-free. Evan McKay, that showed some good speed so far. He's amongst those in the top 5, 122.7. The SRT machines, once again, throwing on some good performances. And he talked about the racetrack earlier on today when it comes to some of the expectations for passes and whatnot. A lot of drivers trying to make sure they don't clip that grass.
Yep, Brands Hatch is an old school circuit through and through. There is grass and gravel lining the circuit practically everywhere. You won't see any tarmac runoffs here. So corners like this one, Paddock Hill Bend, you got to be very careful not to run too far beyond that green painted concrete. And down in the Indy section of the circuit, through the natural bowl this track was built in, there's a lot of opportunities to run off the track as well. But Caleb Lehman in the McLaren is maximizing every opportunity he can for that run onto the straight up to Hawthorne.
Early inside the top 10 so far for the qualifying session. Lehman's also showed flashes of good speed in the top 12, and points, never mind, he just crashed into the wall.
Oh dear, yeah, very easy to lose the rear end into that high-speed corner. That's something you're going to be seeing a couple of times tonight, I think, Justin, because the fast corners at this place requiring a brake bias that's a bit further to the rear. This is a fixed series, but I believe the brake bias is one of the things that you can adjust while you're in the car, and so drivers are going to be pushing that as far as they can for a bit of extra rotation.
Looking at Tony Costello currently holding on the 12th. He is currently just about 10 1,000s. Oh my, there's a crash in front.
Whoa.
That was Robert Jeffries, who was around it right on the corner exit for Graham Hill Bend.
Yeah, that's one of the dangers of an open qualifying session around a track that is only 3.7 kilometers long and mostly straights. You end up catching those incidents very quickly when they happen.
Looks like he's okay, but did pick up some contact, possibly going to invalidate the lap, but can say at the very least, he's right now tightly confined when it comes to him and Joey Costello. It's fell orange mate when it comes to the paint schemes tonight. Joey Costello is your current AM leader for the qualifying session, and by a sizable amount, actually, the 17th place Sean Prevost currently building up a buffer, so the Costellos pretty much identical on pace.
Yeah, doing very well, actually. Only separated by 1/10 of a second as the checkered flag flies in the session. It's open qualifying with a single race, so the drivers will get a chance to finish the lap they're on once the checkered flag comes out. So still have yet to see if there's any late improvements in the session.
Can tell you at least 3 drivers just had to tow from an incident in Druids. Outside of that, things looking clean for most of the drivers in this session. Jim Felice did bump up to within 1/10 of the pole time, as Munsto's going to be pushing on their final laps here. We'll see how many drivers elect to pull in here, but we're expecting to be fairly tight because, well, it's only 2.3 miles. What are going to be some of those keys to victory you think here tonight?
I think managing traffic when you come in for your mandatory pit stop, the drivers will have to take some fuel along the way here. But also, I think on lap 1, just keeping it clean. The track is narrow, especially going through the woods.
Well, the drivers, I can tell you, see Jim Felice elected but duck it down to pit road. He is happy with the front row starting spot. But Luke Wallace able to put himself top of the board for this session. It's his first pole and the 4th different pole sitter for this series this season. So long as nothing else shuffles on the pylon. So that should set things up for an intriguing start yet again. The BOP has been fairly balanced when it comes to the manufacturers on the fixed side this season after all. And as all drivers have now peeled off the racetrack, why don't we go through the run-through on how they'll start tonight? Luke Wallace starts on the pole for SRT Black. SRT Yellows, Jim Felice, he'll start second. Teammate to him and Brett Thurman starts in 3rd. Israel Osborne starts in 4th spot. Evan McKay, the first of the SRT Blues, in 5th. Joshua Chinsky is back in 6th spot. The first non-SRT or independent driver is William Fenton tonight for Fenton Brothers. He'll start alongside David Bush, the 3rd, one of his best qualifying runs. Caleb Lehman and Jared Keene, your top 10. Nick Bruno for Trash Panda Racing starts 11th. Tony Costello back in 12th. 13th goes to Joey Costello. That's where Tyler Graffles will start tonight. Then Andrew Trinket and Sully Siad start alongside 15th and 16th. Sean Prevost starts off 17th alongside him, Waldo Walden. Then 19th, Colin McKenzie from Lotic Racing to start alongside SRT White, Christopher Rhines. Jay Steffi starts off at 21st. Dan Elgin starts off in 22nd. Andre Benatti and Pete Meinschut starting off all the way back in 24th. Buck Hamilton, 15th spot. David Morse, 26th. Vincent Genero in his BMW starts on 27th. Brett Punkari is in 28th. Reagan Chandler and Austin Fink, your top 30 here tonight. Dale Peterson starts off 31st. Mark Elliott starts 32nd. Ian Cabana and Robert Jeffries back in 34th. Sean Mulholland starts 35th. Kevin Berquist way deep in the field in 36th. Ryan Chandler starts alongside Scott Jeffries, and only one driver didn't set a qualifying time over the course of 20 minutes. Barry Cochran was the only driver with invalidated laps on his qualifying attempts. He elected not to finish the session. Looking at the track conditions here today, it is a later evening start here. Track conditions 78 Fahrenheit for tonight. The wind gusts currently to a minimum for the 7:16 p.m. start time. 35 minutes of the clock. It should be a fun one, Reese.
Yeah, certainly should. Nice cool track temperature there. For those of you who live in metric land, that's 26 degrees Celsius on the tarmac. So the tyres will take a little bit longer to get up to their optimum pressures or their running pressures, but once they do, there'll be a lot of grip available to the drivers. This is going to be a fun race, especially if you're watching in the first section of this circuit. Fun fact, Brands Hatch actually was created in the 1930s in this natural bowl as a bicycle racing circuit, and that's foot and pedal powered bicycle, a bean-shaped track that roughly follows the outline of the present Indy circuit. It's amazing to see how much this track has grown over the years.
It's going to be an amazing race here tonight to see how the PRL in particular handles itself here at Brands Hatch as they quickly sprint their way to the midway portion of the season. I'll put you on the spot here. Who do you think is going to get the job done tonight, and why?
I can't count out Jim Feliz, championship leader coming into this round. Luke Wallace is going to provide a formidable opponent, though. The Corvette is looking rather quick here. I wouldn't count out Isaiah Osborne in the Audi either. He's certainly got a lot of pace in that car, but I think my money is going to be on Feliz. He is the leader of the points. He knows how to get it done.
They still have about half a racetrack before they get going here. And now, one of the main dynamics we'll keep an eye on here tonight as well, the AM class with separation of at least 4 positions between its pole sitter and its second place drivers on back. We've seen if you survive the first lap, well, it puts you in a great spot if you're in AM class. But if there's any attrition in the midfield, well, it can get interesting for that respective class here today.
Yeah, the AM class is split up by quite a few pros as you go down through the field. Certainly going to be interesting on the first lap, see what the pace difference is like throughout this very close field. I'm still marveling at how close those qualifying times were, but at the end of the day, it was only the pace over 1 lap. Now we've got to see the pace over 35 minutes.
1.2, 1.3-ish seconds is the difference between those first two, about 25th. But up front, Luke Wallace is on the loud pedal. Feliz are running to the inside. Green flag is out. We're underway for the PRL's GT3 Fixed Series from Brands Hatch. A clean start for the front runners, at least so far. 2 by 2 as they work their way down the hillside. Down Halewood's Hill all the way to Druids this time. No major contact. No major lunges. 1 hit for Lehman. Outside of that, everyone else seems to be okay.
Yeah, it looks like a nice clean start for pretty much everyone in the field, but we're going to the forest section now, and that's where the highest speed, lowest margin for error turns are. If anyone runs a little bit wide into the grass, that's going to be chaos for everyone in the field. As Rhea Osborne at the moment under a lot of pressure from Evan McKay there for 4th place, but as the front of the field makes their way into Hawthorne, this is where the money is made.
All of them working their way through Sector 2 just like that. Wallace keeping things clean, but Osborne still holding on to the bridge. So now it's going to be the interesting thing over the course of these 35 minutes. How do the packs break apart? Well, there's one way. One driver off the racetrack. That's backdrop right now all the way to the corner. Joshua Chinsky having him work his way left side of the track and cut through the grass.
Yeah, it looks like he just suffered a bit of understeer through Dingledell and off the racetrack there, but he's managed to rejoin the racetrack cleanly, down in 18th position, 12 spots down. That's a disastrous first lap for Chinsky. Everyone else having a remarkably clean first lap. I'm seeing basically only two other drivers losing spots there, Joey Costello and Waldo Walden.
Take a look at those bigger movers and shakers, many up 2 spots at least. Joey Costello, his gap between him and Provost is down to just 1 car in between them and Sayad. For reference, big bobbles on screen though. McKay having a very hard time in this traffic.
Yeah, McKay does seem to not have gotten the run that he wanted. He's a bit further behind Osborne, but he's absolutely flinging it into Hawthorne as we check out the battles further back here. This is way further back in the field. Another one of the SRTE cars. Focusing on, I believe, the number 84 of Walden there, as he's trying to stay ahead of the likes of Dan Elgin and a Ferrari off. It looks like that's William Fenson that's gone off the track. That allows Caleb Lehman and David Bush by further into the top 6.
It's up towards the front runners, so already seen plenty of drivers go off. Of note, one driver has had a technical issue to send them off the track. That's seen right now just like that. Kevin Bergquist out of the race with technical issues. And I just received word that big news for the point standings tonight. Quarin just made sure to inform us, if you didn't notice, he is not here tonight and not able to race.
Oh dear. Well, that's going to be a big loss in the points in the short term, but if he can keep his attendance up, then maybe he'll be able to salvage something. He'll be watching this intently, will Mr. Nin, and we'll see how everything stacks up here at the front of this field. Looks to me like Luke Wallace is reasonably comfortable in the lead. Just as I say that, dips a wheel into the gravel. Feliz is piling the pressure on.
Trying to, at the very least, last time by, it was Wallace who was quicker by a couple tenths. So, how does this pressurization now play out? You know they're SRT teammates, but they're different teams per se for the team structure. What's that conversation like compared to some of those, say, in the big box, where they're not teammates? And going around!
Dear oh dear, Luke Wallace is the one who spun there, and that was coming through Hawthorne. I thought we'd see an incident like that. Fortunately, it doesn't look like anyone else was involved.
A bit of attrition building up there in the heart of the field. So far, nobody out of the race just yet, but I was about to say, how does that pressure play itself out when you're teammates in the same grouping of team structures?
Well, obviously, there's the pressure to not hit your teammate, but that speaks for itself, really. I'd like to think that there's no team orders at SRT, so they'll be free to race. I think what they'll have to think about more than anything is the difference between the cars and how they make their pace. Feliz, of course, in the Porsche, Luke Wallace driving the Corvette Z06, and those cars will make their pace in slightly different ways around here. You see that Feliz is starting to put the pressure on across the top of the circuit, but it seems like the mid-engine Corvette is a little stronger down at the bottom of the racetrack. So that's something they'll have to think about. Where can they actually make the move? Obviously, it's still very early on in the season as well. We are only at the 4th round, so I think it'll take a couple more rounds before we start seeing a real hierarchy form in terms of those sub-teams.
Been difficult to break away if you're not with SRT so far this season. Now, starting to see those two indeed break away from the rest of the pack at the very least. So the only drivers last time by the 122s. Nope, midfield, Colin McKenzie's had some issues. Outside of that, everybody else keeping their P's and Q's together here. And that's one of the tough things about this track we've touched upon, is a lot of chances to go off. And so far, it's been just a razor's edge difference between The tires going off and spinning and holding on for some.
Yeah, and the drivers over this 35-minute race will be keeping their eyes on their incident count. You know, it's very easy to get the dreaded off-track 1X around Brands Hatch, and Precision Racing League, of course, has an incident limit in races. I believe it's 13 incidents for a drive-through and 20 for a disqualification. So that's another big point of contention for the drivers. Looking a bit further back, that's a replay of Buck Hamilton going for a spin coming out of the Paddock Hill Bend, the first turn of the circuit. That's going to be 2 more incidents to his name.
Yeah, they're starting to stack up for a couple, but not that many. Buck Hamilton was running about mid-pack, those battling in the M class. But Wallace still holding strong 206 7/10 advantage right now. We know as well, though, that Feliz doesn't mind this usually. He likes to save gas and pile on the fuel for when the pit stop comes into play.
Yes, that's another option that the drivers have around here. There's plenty of long, flat-out sections at Brands Hatch, so if you're able to sit behind someone, get a tiny bit of slipstream, lift and coast a little into the corners, then that'll pay dividends for you later on. It'll be less fuel that you'll have to put into the car at the pit stop, shorter pit stop time, and it'll work out for you. Considering Luke Wallace's pace so far, Feliz starting to drop off, I think Feliz is going to have to start focusing on fuel saving just a little more. But we check a bit further back to Tony Costello and the Audi chasing down Tyler Graff. This is a very fun battle indeed. It's difficult to tell who really has the edge in the battle, though. They need to keep an eye out for Andrew Trickett behind as well.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season so far for Graff. We've seen him as a championship contender just a season ago. This season, just 1 top 5 on the campaign so far for someone known for his open wheel experience in other series. So it's been interesting how it's played out there as we look back to McKay.
Yep, chasing down the potential position in the top 5 here, maybe even top 4 if things go well for him. Meanwhile, Dan Elgin, a couple of laps ago, going for a slight spin there, and that's coming through Sterling's Bend. Another one of those corners on the track where it's very easy to lose the rear end.
That hard slam didn't cost him the race, though. No meatball flags so far in session. We have lost an aero driver and McKenzie due to tech issues. So we have seen 2 different drivers have that situation. Bergquist is 3 down from that situation earlier on. Up towards the front. Brett Thurman currently leading essentially pack 2. Osborne keeping within distance. Right now, Thurman having a lot of flickers of grass pop up as Osborne tries to pressurize him in the Audi.
Yes, Rio Osborne's having a very good race right now, and being as close as he is to the Porsche, he'll be getting a few extra little tips for how to go fast around here. Obviously, qualifying up the top of the field, he knows how to go fast anyway, but you know, being able to follow someone so closely and see what lines they're taking gives you opportunities to find a way through, and the exit of Paddock Hill Bend didn't go too well there for Thurman. Not much of a chance for Osborne to send one up the inside, though.
Now, Osborne has had speed all season, but the thing is, the DNF he had in the opening round of the season has really set him back for the championship complexion. 70 points, and with that DNF, he's all the way back in 17th for the pro standings.
Yeah, that's a long way back for Osborne, so he'll want to be getting some consistent results on the board in these next few rounds. If he can finish 4th at the very least in this race, that'll be a solid amount of championship points for him, considering the pressure he's putting Brett Thurman under and the fact that Evan McKay is catching up to them. I think there's a few more permutations as to how that's going to go.
And it adds a bunch more pressure, you think, too. When you think about the permutations, is he can't afford to miss a race. If he misses a race, he's out of the championship entirely. Because with the DNF, that essentially eats up the drop week. And one of those opportunities for the drop, should say, for the season.
Yeah, exactly. You do get one drop round over the course of a 9-week season in the PRL, but you've got to be very careful how that drop week works out for you. If you DNF one round, then the pressure is on to get consistent results at every single remaining round. 2 battles going on track at the moment. This battle right now, and we saw the battle for 7th as well with William Fenson trying to hold off a long pack of cars that stretches all the way down to the recovering Joshua Chinsky, who's worked his way back up to 16th place.
Not bad of recovery so far back there, but backstage, long step. Here's a look at Feliz. Right now, Feliz so far run away a fair bit in terms of the grouping. That's from Luke Wallace, should say, that look back. Wallace is starting to break away a little bit, although Feliz did get a slight better lap last time by. It's the couple hundreds quicker each time that's allowed Wallace to build up this buffer to near 8/10ths.
Really is amazing how well matched these two are. Jim Feliz has never been more than within a 10th of the times being set by Luke Wallace. It's certainly going to be interesting to see how this stacks up when they make the pit stop cycle. Wallace starting to put down some better times now and stretching that gap out. It looks like he's doing just enough to provide a comfortable gap. Fastest car on track last time by. Meanwhile, all the way down in the field, Mark Elliott, it looks like there's been a problem for Andre Benatti. No, Benatti's going into the pits, and that's why Mark Elliott jumped up from 25th to 24th. So we have our first pitter of the race. Whether or not it's for the mandatory pit stop remains to be seen.
I can tell you Benatti just came in. Now, we'll say Mark Elliott, seen with the window, did put in a ton of time, by the way, to make sure you try to get the 2-camera look in for tonight. Good on him to be able to make the technical side worked out. Up front yet again. Already coming up to 21 minutes to go. This upcoming time by on the board. Expect these drivers to go upwards of an hour 7 to 9 more minutes normally. But right now, these 3 drivers on screen in this group are continuously ballooning time by 4 seconds now is the gap to them and Wallace.
Yeah, Brett Thurman, the fastest car of the pack there, but, well, actually, no. Osborne was a couple hundredths faster on the last lap, and this lap, Osborne was faster again by just under a 1/10 of a second. So this is going to be interesting, this battle. Can Azria Osborne get a podium here if everything goes right? Thurman, it seems, starting to feel the pressure. Osborne looking aggressive in the outing.
A little bit of an off track yet again for McKay. That's going to put him back a touch bit from this pack. As we continue on with the action. Now, we talked about the development for Quarin, not here tonight in the racetrack, but he is apparently available for the interview side. Why don't we bring him on in? Quarin now joins us here in the broadcast booth. What's the situation? Why are you not on the racetrack?
I really wish I could be on the racetrack, but I just got a new job, so I am not in town because I'm out of town for a whole week doing training.
That's well, congratulations on the new job in one circumstance. Unfortunate not to see you here tonight for the drop. What have you been able to break down from your competitors here tonight so far, early on in this race?
Well, I didn't expect the Corvette to be that fast around here, just because there wasn't a lot of long straights, but there are fast, high-speed corners. So as long as he can keep and maintain and not wear out his tires, he should be able to finish in podium. Jim Feliz, it looks like he's kind of struggling a little bit, but it might not be his strong track, and with the other tracks coming up towards the end of the season, I think he'll be able to pick it back up.
So on that note, will we see you again for the championship next week?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Hopefully I won't miss another race, because missing one alone is already going to be tough to get the championship points. I have to get all the points as possible, and it just puts a little bit more pressure on myself for that goal.
Well, we'll let you get back to what you've been doing. Thank you very much for taking a couple moments to speak with us.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
Bucknett standing on by, watching the action along as he, as said, out of town. We did receive word during that Tony Costello destroyed the race car. The 37 machine was running as high as 12, and it's now officially off the track with the tow truck after it slammed to the wall. That's going to see him plummet down the pylon, to say the very least, and it's one of 3 now, multiple laps down race.
Yeah, big shame for Tony Costello, and well, this will be a 0 points round for him. So very unfortunate indeed. The Audi, at the best of times, has a bit of a dancey rear end, which makes it even more impressive just how much Isaiah Osborne here is able to pressure Brett Thurman for third. He's caught up and he's going for the move.
Going alongside through Surtees. A bobble for Osborne. Now the run for Thurman. Has some help now from behind. McKay trying to take advantage now to the preferred line, coming to Hawthorns.
Oh, Osborne just runs off the circuit on the exit of the bend and will have to yield the position there to McKay. Oh, that was a very well executed move there from McKay. Opportunistic, to say the least. He took advantage of the poor run for both Osborne and Thurman and was able to complete the move. Meanwhile, this is what happened to Tony Costello. He just took a bit too much curb there, a bit too much of a slide, lost the rear and into the Armco. The front bumper comes off, and I think the front suspension was damaged quite some as well, so he wasn't able to get back going, unfortunately. And, interesting stuff there from Isaiah Osborne. He's responded to that loss of position by taking an early pit stop.
Don't blame him, especially with what happened there, and that's the risk you take if you try and jump the queue and don't get the job done. You end up losing time, and it looks like he's trying to say, I think I'm quicker if I'm in clean space than those two.
Took a little bit to jump off the jacks there. Of course, being this early in the race, it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. Traffic is going to be a problem if you decide to pit early, and it looks to me like he's come out in quite a bit of traffic. So let's see what the pace difference is like and whether or not he can make up that time, potentially with an undercut on pace.
Speaking of pace, Fenton showing some pace. He's closed up the gap. Originally, Lehman had been on his own by a good second or so, and now the Ferrari is slowly but surely joining the fight in the 88.
Indeed. I'm familiar with the Fensons. Henry being one of them who races in the GTP and GT3 series, and it looks like his fellow Fenson is going to find his way into the pits along with Brett Thurman, interestingly. Thurman feeling the pressure and deciding now is the time to get that extra bit of fuel, try and get some clear air, but will they be successful in that?
We'll find out. Oh, what happened on the replay? David Morse got punted around and right back into traffic.
Goodness me, really good avoidance from the other Corvette there, immediately on the brakes and avoiding getting into the crash. Well done indeed, but yeah, that's massive for David Morse. He's going to fall way down the order. In fact, he already has. He came into the pits a lap ago to get that damage repaired, lost a minute and 30 seconds or so worth of time. He's down in 35th, last car running, apart from Kevin Bergquist, who has recovered from his technical issues and is back out onto the racetrack, but many laps down at this point.
Meanwhile, Sayad, he's been holding strong up front. He's also got Joshua Chinsky, who's been able to come up and track back up to him. So Chinsky's recovery gaining a fair amount of time now during this cycle.
Yeah, Chinsky's doing very well, isn't he? Of course, he's been helped by a few of the front runners coming into the pits, so his track position is not necessarily an indicator of where he's going to be. But regardless, it's been a fantastic recovery from the number 36. He's been running competitive lap times as well. Problem for Mark Elliott and the Ferrari, losing the rear coming into Sterling's and clobbering the tyre bundles on the exit. He'll be happy that he didn't hit the Armco there, because that would have definitely destroyed the car, but still, it's an extra little thing that you don't want to have to deal with in a race like this.
Also received word on why McKenzie's tech issues happened. A thunderstorm struck and immediately knocked out the power for one of those drivers. You gotta hate those random summertime thunderstorms that can strike.
Yeah, I mean, you know, real racing, you have stuff like, I don't know, a software glitch or a bearing fails, or, you know, you run over some debris on the racetrack, things outside of your control that can alter your race. For sim races, it's largely technical, hardware and software failures, and also the force of Mother Nature herself. Oh, big move from the lead. Luke Wallace has come into the pit lane.
Had to think that might be possible, though, because he's led all these laps pushing. And as expected, Jim Feliz going a lap longer, at least.
Yeah, we'll see how this works out for Feliz. He's going to have some clear air and an opportunity to make up some time. In my personal racing experience, there's been a few ways to go about that. Sometimes you like having a car to follow because it means you have someone to chase, you go faster. But sometimes having clear air and feeling like you're the only car out there can grant you some extra pace as well. We'll see what works out for Feliz as the pit stops completed for many, many drivers at the moment, seeing that the leader of the cars who have pitted is Evan McKay in the number 8. He's just come out there in 5th spot. Brett Thurman and William Fenson, meanwhile, 2 laps in, they resume 6th and 7th for the time being. The only cars that haven't pitted yet are our top 2, Feliz and Chinsky, and Waldo Walden in 4th. Also, Jace Steffi, who's down in 23rd position. Every other car has visited the pits at least once.
Of note, Steffi originally started this race from pit road. Jim Feliz just entered the pit lane. So where will Wallace cycle? We're about to find out with Feliz already in the pit lane. Wallace currently making his way towards the start of Sector 3, all the way up to Clearways. With that, Jim Feliz is not going up yet on the jacks. Currently just sitting in the box, trying to maximize the amount of time here. 11 minutes to work with. He's on the gas. Where is Wallace? Where is Wallace? He's passed by. Luke Wallace takes the overall lead on track. Net lead, should say, with Chinsky yet to pit. But Wallace able to get a big jump despite the 1 lap undercut call.
Yeah, that's very interesting there from Luke Wallace, especially considering he was a little bit slower at the stop. Though, having said that, his entry to exit time in pit lane was pretty much level with Feliz's. So I think it all came down to the outlap for Luke Wallace. He's managed to nail that. Either that or Feliz probably wasn't going as quick as he wanted on the in-lap. So that battle will resume. They're separated by 1.5 seconds at the moment. A great boon for Luke Wallace. Can Feliz catch up is the big question.
Huge question. You know who's been able to pick up a fair amount of time from the Psycho is Fenson. You know who lost time? Brett Thurman. One of the first drivers to come in from the lead group, all the way back to 5th, lost a ton of ground. He's net 4th.
Yeah, interesting to see that Thurman's had those issues. I'm wondering if he had a problem out on track rather than in pit lane, because his pit stop time's actually looking reasonable as things stand. In comes Joshua Chinsky, meanwhile, the man on the recovery, and we'll see where he works out, just pulling into the box now as these guys are going to be making their way past him. See if he can hold on to a position in the top 10.
Looks like the answer quickly is resounding not at the moment. Despite Chinsky having a quick stop of 8 seconds, he's dropped out to 11th. Thurman still playing defense, meanwhile, on screen through Druids. Waldo Walden What happened after the pit stop cycle for Waldo? Well, he immediately got into the side of a door.
Yeah, the BMW there coming in at racing speed, and I think Waldo potentially trying to get up to speed and just making a small mistake. It's a very difficult entry into Paddock Hill Bend, especially if you're all the way over on the right side of the racetrack. So, yeah, he'll try to make a recovery from that, but man, it always stings when something like that happens.
Yeah, you can't really plan that. It is a pit lane that does cycle back to the racing line, essentially, for the run to Paddock Hill Bend, after all. So, 8 minutes to work with coming up here. Luke Wallace in line to lead. Robert Jeffries, this was a big one. Watch.
Oh, yes, it was. Goodness me. Oh, no. One of the Porsches there coming in at racing speed. The problem with that particular corner, Justin, is it's blind on entry. So even if you have your spotter calling that there's a car stopped, you're not going to understand where exactly it is until it's too late.
And in that case, Robert Jeffries knocked out of the race, likely out with meatball flag as a result of the hard contact. Still keep an eye on that battle between Thurman and Fenson, by the way, on screen. Fenson now with a chance go just shy of the podium. By the way, Joey Costello is still the AM leader. He's held on to the AM lead this entire race. Seems to be in line to stay there. Dale Peterson, one of those in the blind corner.
Yeah, and oh yeah, you see, oh man, he was going through at racing speed, probably should have gotten the memo and slowed down a little bit, but by the time he'd already committed to the corner, I mean, he had absolutely nowhere to go. You know, you jump on the brakes, you're going to slide and spin and crash anyway, so yeah, I don't think there were many options for him there.
Well, that's already seen him pull out of the race too, as a result of the contact. That'll score him about 34th position. Caleb Lehman, he lost a fair bit of time and is now right back into the thick of things with Osborne, who lost a ton of time. That undercut call for him did not work. He's also got David Bush up there as well in that grouping we just seen.
Yeah, I'm actually amazed that Osborne is so far back. I'd lost track of where he was, but that early decision to pit not working out for him at all. I'm looking back through his race times at the moment, and it doesn't look like anything untoward has happened to him. His lap times have just been in and around the the 1 minute 23s as they have been since around about the time he came into the pits. So I think Osborne just struggling to find pace in clear air. Maybe he needed that draft.
It's looking like that because he was with Thurman and McKay. McKay's gained 4 seconds on Thurman to be able to pull away for the podium spot. But it says a lot.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Fenson really pushing, though. He's been right on the very edge of a lot of these curbs trying to gain ground here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he is pushing incredibly hard, isn't he? It's a very impressive drive from William Fenson. But yeah, good point you raise about McKay versus Thurman, because they had exactly the same lane time and pit stop time as well. So there's been issues for Thurman elsewhere, maybe struggling a bit more for consistency than McKay is.
Seems to be the case right now. And you see where some of the pit deltas were. The Lees had a quicker stop but lost ground on the racetrack because the lane was near identical. Same said for many others. Fenson gained time in the pit lane because he had one of the shorter stops in this entire race. Chisky had the shortest, about the 8-second bracket. He's back in 12th position on the racetrack. But we're coming up to the home stretch. 3 laps to go estimated already.
Yeah, only 4.5 minutes on the clock, which means time is rapidly running out for William Fenson to make this move. And as a driver, that's one of the portions of the race where you really get an eye-in to your skill level. When the clock is running out and you've got that pressure on to make the move, you're trying your best to nail every corner exit and put yourself in a position to make a move. But Fenson having a bit of trouble there out of Sterling's. He's right on the bumper of Thurman now, and you're right, Justin, he is pushing so hard out of every single corner. I don't think I've seen a single turn where he hasn't been dipping a wheel half off into the grass.
Yeah, right here in particular, blinking lights time, because that's Bergquist. Lap traffic ahead. Barry Cochran went straight hard to the wall.
Oh, and ping pong into the tyre barrier as well. It's a problem there for Cochrane, not taking part in qualifying, wasn't able to get a lap in. And slight technical issue there for William Fenson. This is going to be a problem, potentially, but these guys have caught up to the lapped Corvette now. This is going to give a bit of extra breathing room for Thurman, I'd imagine. He'll get a bit of slipstream, and yeah, you can see that the gap has extended slightly. Fenson is allowed through as well, but man, the pictures just tell the whole story there.
Good respective blue flags there too from Bergquist. Hard on the brakes there. No send on yet. Less than 30 minutes to go here in this race. A bit of a kick up for Fenson. He saved it.
Wow, very well saved indeed from William Fenson, but that's unfortunately going to help him lose the battle with Brett Thurman for 4th place. Unless Thurman makes another mistake down the line, there's still enough time for that to happen. 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Luke Wallace has just come into Druids, so I think it's 2 laps to go at this stage.
And for Luke Wallace, this would be a big breakthrough night, I think, for him once we get to that point, because, well, didn't have a pole before tonight. Didn't have a win before tonight. On the stat sheets, that's likely going to change here now with how things are going, at least for one of those two. At this point, 2 of the 2, if it holds for the next 2 minutes. Fenson seems to be falling back. He's going to be pretty happy. One of his best runs of the season. In fact, the best for him. A top 5 run for Fenson. That's going to be his 2nd top 5 of the season, last time out.
Yeah, very well done there, indeed. It's going to be an interesting fight here on the final lap. You can see that despite the mistake he made on the last lap, Fenson is starting to catch up again. Thurman, I think, running a little deep in Dingle Dell, and so the Ferrari is right back on the rear of the Porsche. Take 2.
Can he do something? That's the question. White flag already flying down the front straightaway. This is the final chance here. Can Fenson find a way to get to 4th if they pass by Barney? Right now, 2-3 car lengths the distance. Needs a mistake for Thurman to do it. A little bit more point. A little bit better of a run for Druids.
Yeah, doing well. Brett Thurman, a 123.8 on the last lap versus a 123.4 for William Fenson. 0.4 of a second gained, and maybe even more on the last lap. Fenson, I think, has got the red mist descending over him, and he says, now it is time for me to catch up. Just need to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes. There was another little wiggle there.
That might cost him. Right now, he's way too far back for any sort of lunge right now. At least 4 or 5 car lanes the difference. Needs a couple laps. And yet again, pushing hard. Scott Jeffrey stops on the track to let drivers go. But this is all while things come to a close for this race. Of note, it's been a clean one up front for Luke Wallace. But for him, SRT Black is going to victory lane. Luke Wallace gets the win here at Brands Hatch.
Lovely drive from Luke Wallace. Corvette on top. Lovely to see. Championship leader Jim Felice will finish in 2nd, and that's a solid point stay there for the number 5.
First win in the PRL for the all-time statistics. How about that for him? He becomes the 4th different winner this season. Joey Costello holds on to the AM class and will take 14th to do it.
Joey Costello's driven very well there. It was a quiet race from him. We didn't see too much from him over the course of the race, but I think that is a blessing in disguise. Most of the drivers we focused on were having issues out there.
Yeah, it was a wild one for some drivers. It was a clean race up front for many. And the rest of the drivers now coming to a close for the races here. In total, 29 drivers finish on the lead lap for today's action here at Brands Hatch. The last of those drivers just crossing the stripe next couple moments. An entertaining one here for the PRL as all cars have crossed. Luke Wallace takes the win, 1.8 seconds the gap between him and Feliz. Wallace, the fourth different winner in 4 races. Feliz, McKay, and Thurman make an SRT 1 through 4. Fenson rounds out the top 5. Lehman finishes off in 6th, with Bush 3rd, Osborne, Graf, and Bruno in your top 10. Chinsky does get up to 11th. He tried hard to get the final spot late. Just comes up shy by about a 10th. Keen, Sayad, Joey Costello picks up the M-Class win. Trinket, then Provo in 16th. Rides, Maja, Benatti, and Walden, your top 20. Regan Chandler, Jay Steffi, Vincent General back there, as well as Mulholland. Buck Hamilton's recovery gets him to 25th. Mark Elliott, 26th. Cabana, Elgin, Ryan Chandler, and Barry Cochran, the top 30. Scott Jeffries finished off in 31st, with Morris Bergquist, Fink amongst those multiple, if not several, laps down. Peterson, Robert Jeffries, Pankari, Tony Costello, and McKenzie a part of the DNF list tonight. Jim Flees did pick up the fastest lap at the very least, so a point goes his way here tonight. The drivers now making their way in for post-race discussions. Luke Wallace is the one who's able to take the checkered flag, though. Luke, if our numbers are correct, first pole, first win. How are you feeling?
Feeling great. That was a great Tuesday night for me.
How would you describe your emotions, able to break through for PRL victory lane here tonight, having to beat drivers like Feliz to do it?
Man, I'm currently dripping in sweat. Jim was right behind me that whole time, and I was just trying not to mess up, not let him get any time back, and it all worked out in the end.
Well, with that being said, what was the biggest challenge in the end for this race that you felt was the big thing here at Brands Hatch?
You know, I think it must have been the tires probably on the last 3-4 laps or so into turn 2. It was just a little bit unstable for me, and it was kind of worrying me.
Well, on that note, Luke, any shout outs you'd like to give as part of your first win?
Yeah, Jim, Evan, great job on the podiums for SRT.
Luke Wallace coming away with the win tonight. Gets the first spot in P1 for the pro class here tonight. Jim Feliz is with Races in second.
Good points day for you, Jim. Came into this round as the championship leader. Just couldn't catch Luke.
Yeah, he was flying out there today. Congrats to him on the win. I felt like I did all I could to chase him down, and yeah, he just pulled away from me, and that was that. But yeah, I don't think you find too many people complaining about a trio of second place finishes. So not a bad trend, and certainly some good points today.
You stayed out for an extra lap in the pit cycle. Did you save a bit of fuel running behind Luke there?
He was going so fast, it didn't really give me an opportunity to save that much. I think most of that was just down to the differences between the Corvette and the Porsche. I think the Vet's maybe a little thirstier, slightly smaller tank engine on the Porsche, and maybe a little bit more fuel efficient there. So had enough for one more.
Well, regardless, an excellent run for you, and should be able to stay in the running for the championship going forward. Congratulations once again, Jim.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Lovely stuff from Jim Feliz, and looks to me like Evan McKay is also with us, just in third place on the road, making it 2 Porsches in the top 3.
Yes, indeed, Evan. How would you describe the race here tonight?
Oh, that was stressful. I felt like every second I was going to throw the car into the wall, but ended up making 2 nice passes. Got Brett in the pits, and Israel there. Not sure what happened to him at the end, but yeah, it was a good race for me.
Well, as things get loaded up for the next grouping here, was about to say, what was the big thing in terms of that? Why were you feeling like you were going to wreck the car every time?
This track is just sketchy for me. To keep it on the limit, it's like the limit is either you're going fast or you're dying. It's not just a simple off track. So yeah, that was just my only problem. But I managed to do well, I think. It was just stressful trying to keep it on the limit.
Well, on that note, next time out, we have a bit of a spa day coming up on the schedule. Your thoughts on the next track on the circuit?
Oh, I'm excited for Spa. I'm pretty strong there, I think. So yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Anybody want to give a shout out to?
Just the guys at SRT. I like practicing with them. Helped me get fast this week, and yeah, shout out to them.
Once again, Evan McKay rounding out the podium finishers here tonight. He gets third step on the podium. The M win goes the way of Joey Costello. A quiet one, but a strong one. He is with the race.
He is indeed. Congratulations, Joey. Yeah, it was certainly an interesting race in the midfield, I'm sure, considering how many drivers had issues down the line.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. You had to have your elbows out in the beginning, but yeah, I was lucky to kind of survive that opening sequence and kind of settle in.
How does the track race in a GT3? Because these cars do have a great bit of pace under them. Brands Hatch, though it is a reasonable length of circuit, it can get a little cramped out there.
It can. It's an amazing track with a ton of great corners, but it does get pretty tight in the GT3s. Very fun to race. Obviously, not a ton of passing opportunities, but still fun to lap around here and get a good result.
Well, we have running the gamut of spectacular racetracks towards the end of the season. Justin already asked about Spa next round, but of the remaining rounds at Nürburgring, Mugello, Imola, and Road America, any of those tracks jump out at you as places where you'll be strong?
I sure hope so. Spa and Road America are some of my favorite tracks, so hopefully I put some good time in there and get a good result there as well.
Well, regardless, Am win on the board for you and some solid points there in 14th place. Big congratulations, Joey. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to you next week.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Joey Costello rounding out our driver interviews there for PRL GT3 Fixed. But now, Justin, we will be turning our attention to the Open Series. It's another race at the same circuit, but man, the pace is going to increase.
Yes, indeed. Once again, that's going to be an exciting one coming up here. The PRL's GT3 Sprint Series now takes center focus as they get ready to race for 40 minutes around Brands Hatch to see which one is able to conquer this historic circuit. So far, we've seen some intense battling, seen more so a lot of strategic racing so far here at the racetrack. It should be interesting now that the setups open up once again, these drivers get some opportunities to be able to pounce on it.
Yeah, indeed. Plenty of opportunities to gain extra time around this place with the right settings applied to the car as we jump on into the team standings here. Selpec Precision Racing Gold is 20 points ahead of Delta Sport. Team standings a little bit more spread out in places than we saw in the Sprint Series, Justin, but still very competitive. We still have more than half the season left to run.
A good run so far for the Precision cars, absolutely, but there is a lot to talk about for the driver's standings because things took some shufflings, in part because, well, one of those Delta Sport drivers did well. We'll touch upon that in a second. The AM drivers, meanwhile, Devin Brock leads by 4 points. He gained 10 points on Peter Muller last time by to be able to get that advantage. Chris Stewart and Derek Knapp, Jason Finch amongst the top 5 at AM. But the storyline touched upon for the pro side, that's coming up right here because Gregory Hobson right now 3 for 3 on the season.
Yeah, indeed. Fantastic job from Gregory so far, but considering how close the points, how closely points are given out in PRL, only 1 point separating most positions. He's only 10 points ahead of Kevin Cantonio, so the pressure's still very much on.
Good say, 3 for 3 for top 5s with Cantonio. Now, of note, Carl Modoff, who won the opening couple races of the season outside of his DNS. That's going to factor in for the drop week here too. He's back in 8th with the drop. He's got 57 and 55 points respectively so far in the season.
Yeah, not ideal indeed. So Carl will certainly be hoping for a more consistent run here at Brands Hatch. And, well, he's doing pretty well in qualifying at the moment. Provisional P2 and only less than a tenth of a second behind Gregory Hoverson, who currently sits on that provisional pole. 700ths of a second in it.
It's been impressive, though, for Gregory, and that's why I brought up so much in the early going here. Looking at the statistics so far this season. So far, 2 fastest laps and 2 poles. He's been a sprinter when it comes to this field.
Yeah, big sprint indeed. And, well, this is certainly a sprint race, isn't it? 40 minutes is going to be on the clock here. And once again, just like the GT3 Fixed Series, there will be a mandatory pit stop. It'll give the likes of Kyle Robertson here an opportunity to lurch forward if he can strategize his way out of it.
And a much bigger spread in times, by the way, this session. The spread is up towards near 2 seconds, 2.5 in fact, for the drivers now in this qualifying session. So a lot more has to be worked upon for some of the drivers. But with 6 minutes to go, we'll see who's able to get some decent runs here. Like Jaquez is doing well for CRT.
Yeah, Fernando Jaquez is certainly, from the past races I've commentated in this series, been one of the drivers to watch at the front of the field. Aggressive much of the time, and aggression may very well be rewarded here at Brands Hatch.
Well, we've seen aggression on the curbing so far, not really necessarily being rewarded. It's about finding those fine limits, right? And most of the field has to know that. We've seen in a lot of cases in the last race, you push too much, it causes a stack up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something the drivers will have to look out for on the first lap. And once the pit cycle is complete and they formed out into their battles, Porsche off in the background there, yeah, you're right. Just one mistake can send you a long way back, and it can also really check up the guys behind, especially if it happens across the top of the circuit here, where all the fastest corners are.
Keep it on mode off, one of the winningest drivers in this style of racing in series history. He brought several of the open wheelers to get some experience built up for them this season. Connor Wagner is up to 3rd, who's amongst those doing very well, and in fact, is trying to follow the line of Carl in the backdrop right now. We'll see what Carl does on the stopwatch. Can he get an improvement by a 10th? Not yet, no.
Yeah, only 400ths of a second off his current fastest time. Kevin Cantonio, meanwhile, coming to a stop there, and he'll have enough time for one more lap, maybe 2, if he plays his cards right. Gregory Hoverson, meanwhile, in the middle of a very fast run at the moment. 121.5 is the time to beat, and it looks like he's just, his last lap was an out lap, so he'll be coming across the line now. Will there be any improvement here for Mr. Hoverson? Across the line he comes, and a 121.4. That's brilliant stuff. He's going to improve his time, increase the margin a bit back to Modoff.
What did I say? He's been a speedster after on qualifying. Now, the bone amongst those resetting. A lot of drivers coming up for their final sprint outs for the lane here. The M class so far, that's being led by Miles Brown. 19th spot. Here's track conditions. A bit more cooler, per se, compared to the last session, but also a lot more gustier.
Yeah, very gusty indeed. 7-mile-per-hour gusts, but the temperature remaining nice and cool. In fact, it's a cooler track than we saw in the fixed session, so the drivers will have a lot of grip available to them once they've gotten their outlaps out of the way. Connor Wagner, meanwhile, geez, it's never nice to see a car going off at Paddock Hill ahead of you, and it looks like he's abandoned that lap.
To reset, might have one lap if he wants to. Because meanwhile, he's had the beauty of fresh space. And so far, Lambo, Ferrari. It's been the metric followed by Porsche, Lambo, Corvette, and Ferrari. So Ferrari amongst those that have done very well, at least with the BOP, at least for today.
Yeah, very nice spread through the field, and I'm interested to see that we have a couple of Mercedes in the field as well. Doesn't seem to have been a very popular car this season. The field obviously dominated by the shiny new Corvettes and Mustangs, but the old stalwarts of the Ferrari, the Audi, the McLaren, the Porsche also in there as well. Lovely little spread. Of course, it is a Corvette on top at the moment, as it was in the fixed session, but we'll see how much that changes when we get to race time.
Arnaud Gineste, keep an eye on him, currently in the 12th position on the Unit SimSports entries. Trying to get some draft built off one of the SimCity cars. Martin Crisp just up the road.
Getting a little bit of slipstream is Arnaud. We'll have to wait and see if he can get it done here. Arnaud currently sitting in 12th spot, and we'll see if Martin Crisp can give him a little bit of slipstream there across the top of the racetrack. Got to be very aggressive with the curb here at Dingledale, and it looks like Gineste nailed that. Now it's through Sterling's, and he's absolutely nailed the curb behind Martin Crisp there, who ran a little bit wide, but seems like Crisp got a slightly better exit down the straight, so maybe running all the way across the curb on the inside isn't the fastest way around. Having said that, man, Arnaud is quick. This looks like it's going to be quite the improvement for him when he crosses the line, but it looks like it didn't count. He lost all of that time in the final sector and then some.
1.1 seconds off his fastest time for Gineste, in fact. Though it was faster than the SimCity car. Whoa, that was a cut hard to the left of the circuit.
Not ideal there. Don't want to see that in qualifying. It looks like it's Marc-Andre Garon there who's off the circuit at Paddock Hill. He's going to jump back into the pits. That'll be the end of his session. There's only 15 seconds remaining on the timer. So drivers who are on a lap now, like Martin Crisp here, will be feeling the pressure as they complete their final laps.
So a strong session. Modov did gain a 10th, by the way, but not the 10th needed to close up in turn. He needed 2 tenths, it's a better phrase. Modov has parked it for the rest of the qualifying session as checker flag waves for said session. Gregory Hobson so far seems to be on point yet again for speed, but has several teammates grouped up behind. The Bone, see if he ducks down. A lot of others finishing laps. This is how close it got down the front straightaway for some. The Bone, last time by, after all that, had at least 2 to 3 cars go off around him.
Yeah, it was very eventful indeed for Tabone, but he'll hold on to 7th for the time being. Still out there, but deciding to come into the pits. Practice a pit stop, that's always handy. I've had some very bad experiences at Brands Hatch entering the pit lane. It's surprisingly difficult to slow down to the limit.
Especially with how quickly it comes up to you, absolutely. And you see how much drivers can, if done right, can really attack that entry. But it looks like, checker flag, once again, drivers finishing up their laps here. Your thoughts on the qualifying?
Well, certainly action-packed, as expected, and this is going to be the grid. Ultimately, the top 2, the teammates Delta Sport, only separated by a 10th of a second.
Hobson once again on the pole. It's Modov alongside tonight. Connor Wagner and Nick Luke-Dink will start inside the top 5. Luke-Dink in the 4th position. Holland in 5th. Marquez gets to 6th. The Bone and Kevin Cantonio farther back tonight in 8th. They'll start on with David Mendonca and Chris Sowan in the top 10. Rob Clark finished off 11th in the session. That's in 12th. Eric Palacio will start 13th. Martin Crisp back in 14th. Dickinson in Lindquist, top 16. Jared Williams farther back in the field tonight alongside Aiden Yun. Miles Brown starts off 19th for Drive Trainer. He's the first of the AM cars. Marc-Andre Quarin alongside. Ethan Bass and Jack Hedgecock's in the top 22. Then the second AM driver is Dakota Knapp back in 23rd today. Kevin Simpson alongside. Brock and Smith, and a lot of more AM drivers back here from here on out. Hodgson and Robertson, Stewart, and then a pro driver, Noah Anderson, deep in the field today. The next page features Jeff Carroll and the last of those who put in times in pro class, and Joshua Spears, Jennings and Sheriff, Christopher and Thomas Rep was the car who went hard left. They finished up qualifying runs with Dan Morera and Aaron Beaver last in session. Two drivers did not set times in the session, Jason Allen and Andrew Lanning. Lanning currently not at the facility due to tech issues. Track conditions even cooler than the qualifying session, just like that. Real quickly, your keys to victory in this one.
I think we'll be following the same sort of playbook as we did in the fixed series race. As long as you can maintain a gap, then you've got it sorted. But if you've got a good car under you, making moves early on, potentially the key to victory. But I think a couple of drivers would have been watching the fixed session and seeing just how much time was lost for Azria Osborne coming out of the pits pitting early. I don't expect we're going to be seeing anyone try to throw that in this one.
Well, we just had the front runners have a wrench thrown into them here, Reese. Tech issues. Hobison out of the session.
Oh, no. Oh, that's huge. Our pole sitter will not take to the start of the race. Hopefully, he'll be able to get back in the sim with some time left on the formation lap, but the time for gridding has already run out, so we're going to get started here on the formation lap. Hoverson just reconnecting to the server now, but it might be too late.
Well, that's going to cause an absolute shuffle for the championship. Also definitely cause one more thing. Connor Wagner to the front row. So how does that change things a bit here? Now knowing that Modov, who's been the one to beat much of the season, essentially be the control car.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how all of this stacks out. At the end of the formation lap, it essentially means that everyone on the right side of the grid, and that's driver's right, is potentially going to move up an extra spot, and that could make all the difference later on.
Now, Hobson did make his way back into the garage area, but it's going to take him time to get back in the car at the very least. He'll not be able to start things off with the grid. He'll have to start from the pit lane. So that's going to mean potentially drop conversation just like that for them, as we see some of the others in the heart of the field get themselves ready. The thick of things going to be pretty chaotic for some.
Yeah, I think particularly in the midfield. I mean, looking at the field spread, it seems a little more than it was in the fixed series, but still the top 17 within a second of Gregory Hoverson's fastest lap time. So things are going to be quite packed on the first lap here.
We'll see how packed in a couple minutes time here as they work their way through the pace lap. Again, happy with this here on Race Spot for the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. As they kick things off from Brands Hatch, the fourth round of their respective season. For those just tuning in, Hobson with tech issues will have to start from the pit lane from pit stall number 1. That's allowed Modov and Wagner, team 1-2 still, the ones in control for this initial start. Modov appears to be in position to control this initial start. Pace car is off. Safety of pit road. Modov to the loud pedal. Green. We're underway for Brands Hatch. Connor Wagner holds on to second, while Modov looks to run away 2 by 2 behind.
Oh, have a look at the move between Nick Ludicki and David Holland up the inside. They will come as the rear of the field gets going in just a few short moments. Mr. pole sitter will be able to exit the pits, and we'll see what kind of recovery Hoverson will be able to get from that.
He has rejoined the field, but in the battle for dead last, essentially. David Holland amongst those doing well so far. But already, gaps are starting to form. Holland known more for open wheel racing in this series for PRL competition. Losing a fair bit of ground. Kevin Cantonio trying to find a way, get around a couple of these drivers.
Yeah, we shall see if he's successful in that. It's a very tight pack for everyone from David Holland back. It seems like Modoff has gotten off to a very good start at the moment. He's carried that momentum beautifully. As seeing some trouble for Marc-Andre Garon. Looks like he's fallen off the circuit somewhere, and in a very big way, down to 39th and last.
Not the greatest of runs, absolutely, for some. Better runs to start for others, in particular Modoff. He's just about taken off. He is right now up by the same interval was by the midway point for the top spot for that race for the win in the fixed side. Already, Duque trying to put on a ton of pressure on Wagner.
Yeah, this is fantastic here from Nick Ludique. He's really fast, it seems, in the Porsche under race conditions. Conor Wagner, I think, might have had some trouble getting going. He probably wasn't expecting to be starting that far up. That's what happened to Garon there, just spinning in front of the pack, and no surprise to see that he decided to wait a little bit to get back onto the circuit there. Having an incident like that on the first lap across the top of the circuit, scary to say the least.
Extremely scary. You do not want to be that driver in the heart of the field seeing a car the wrong way around. Akez, meanwhile, he's already up to 5th with that roll as a result of what happened to your pole sitter. He's trying to keep things lockstep with Holland.
Yeah, he's doing his best, but he's got a lot of pressure from behind as well. Brandon Tabone and Kevin Cantonio, two very fast drivers indeed. Well, the question is, will they be able to draft up to him on these admittedly very short straights? Issue for Nathan Jennings as well. The Lamborghini attempting a move on him, coming through the left-hander onto the back straight, and Jennings sent into the barrier. He'll be none too pleased with that.
Absolutely right now with how things are looking. And again, it's very momentum based when it comes to this style of racing. In a lot of circumstances, you lose your rhythm. It takes a couple laps to get the rhythm back. How's that rhythm fare out when you're in a pack like this?
If I was in the position, not very well. It's difficult to get into a rhythm when you have cars you're trying to catch up to, but then a whole pack behind that wants your position. But these drivers are driving at a very high level, and I think there's going to be some of them who will be relishing the opportunity to try and catch up.
Right now, by the way, the AM lead still hold on to Brown in the heart of the field, but taking a look up front, Wagner doing what he can. Wagner known for being a star in open wheel competition. He's trying to hold up and run away from the rest of these drivers in the queue.
Well, he's actually doing quite well at the moment. I mean, the first lap wasn't entirely smooth for Connor, but now that we are a couple of laps in, he's gotten into a great rhythm in that Ferrari, and sometimes that happens, you know. On cold tires, initially, you just can't find the pace compared to what everyone else is able to do. But then, once the tires heat up, you get used to the car again under race conditions with a full tank, and you'll be able to put down some magnificent times. Plenty of battles going on around this place. The battle for 12th at the moment with Martin Crisp at the head of an absolute freight train of Corvettes.
Yeah, this battle for 12th. Interesting one with Crisp trying to run away from it. Lindquist in it, Hitchcock's in it, Dickinson in the queue as well for those that are lined up astern right now for that grouping of drivers.
Yeah, this is, man, I haven't seen so many Corvettes in one spot in a very long time. The Z06 GT3R is certainly a popular choice when it comes to the Open Series.
Yeah, and it was already talked about by Quarin, some of the advantages versus disadvantages. Your thoughts on the BOP now with the open side in particular, where the setups now open up, compared to, say, the Lambos that are controlling things up front like Modov?
Yeah, well, I think the top of the field is suitably varied. We have Nick Ludicki in the first of our Porsches in the field. David Holland also in the Lamborghini, but then we have Fernando and Connor in the Ferraris. And oh dear, there's just been a big incident at Graham Hill Bend. David Mendonca, one of the cars involved, and someone just went back into the pits. It looks like it was Kevin Cantonio. A massive issue there.
Cantonio is running in 7th position. He's already had to tow the car from what happened back there. Can look hopefully soon here, as that did collect several drivers, including Hain, Mendonca, Clark. Teammate fire that's now caused a lot of those teammates, and also Ethan Bass, to have to come down to the pit lane with tows.
Yeah, that's not ideal at all. The entire team's going to be a little bit miffed at how that went down. Here's the replay. So Cantonio, unfortunately, that's a very weird incident. It looks like he just lost it getting onto the brakes, and then you see his two teammates come in, and they have to slow all the way up, and they fall down the order as a result. Cantonio now retired from the race for the time being. If he can get repairs done after the tow's complete, then maybe he'll be able to get back out there, but he is not going to be finishing in the top 10.
Cantonio has also left the racetrack. He is your first official DNF race here tonight. Okay, still doing a great job here. This is one of his best races so far that comes to mind. One of the newcomers this season. He's been a top 5, top 6 driver. He DNS'd in round number 2, but he's been averaging about 45 points a race so far.
Yeah, doing very well, indeed. And consistency is key. Oh, dear. Speaking of consistency, a lack of thereof from Fernando Jaquez there, who unfortunately had to take to the grass across the top of the circuit. He's lost touch with this little battle for 3rd place. But, yeah, very consistent running for Nick. He's going to be very happy with this if he can pull it off. But he's got a lot of pressure from behind from David Holland, as the battle for 10th is still ongoing. Jack Hedgecock's right on the back of Martin Crisp now.
Yeah, so far, they've been doing a solid job back there. We'll say Hedgecock looks solid. Also, let's take a look at Jaquez again. Jaquez, just see how much you have to attack these corners in Druids in particular, just to get the line right in particular for this first sector.
Yeah, you have to really have a car that's good on rotation at Brands Hatch. Many long corners, and having good rotation will help you in the first sector. But once you get out of the natural bowl this track is built in and you go into the woods, then you start getting to the corners that don't have camber, that don't go on for very long, and sometimes a twitchy car can be your worst enemy in this spot.
Worse twitching as well. You are very likely don't have a car, depending on how much it gets twitchy at a certain point. So with 30 minutes to go, quarter-way distance gone. What happened to Chris Stewart? That does not look promising.
No, it certainly doesn't. Oh my God. Off he goes and into the barrier. Rear end of the car destroyed.
Yeah, that I believe was with Hobison. Gregory is driving with the red mist back there.
Yeah, certainly is. Car 115 has worked his way back up to 26th spot, but that is the that's the big I suppose, talking point that you have to think about when you're starting the race from the pit lane after starting from pole. Hoverson, if he hadn't had his tech issues, would have been able to run away with this in the early stages, but he's having to work his way through drivers that are a lot slower than he is, so he needs to be a bit more careful in making those moves if he wants to have a chance of even finishing the race at this stage.
You know who's doing so though? David Holland. One of the drivers talked about trying to gain some experience in this style of racing. First race didn't do so well, was very quiet. The past 2 rounds, Delta Sport campaign, 36, 37 points respectively. It's been getting better for Holland in this style of racing. This is his best race yet.
Yeah, he's doing very well, isn't he? Keeping the pressure up on Nick Ludecki. And I think Connor Wagner's going to be facing off with some of that pressure as well. He has completely lost touch with Karl Modolf at the front of the field. It's over 3.5 seconds now. These guys are behind our leader.
Holland, the all-time winner when it comes to open wheel Thursdays, mind you. Trying to gain a lot more road experience here. Battle for 13th, by the way. That's on screen right now. Aiden Young amongst those trying to give chase.
Yeah, Aiden Young in the Corvette, and he's got Rob Clark and Kevin Simpson in there as well. I believe those are the 2 cars that unfortunately made contact with Kevin Cantonio as their teammate when he had his spin earlier. So they're a bit back in the pack right now, but we still have a long way to go in this race. 28 minutes. It seems like an eternity, but I'm sure it's going to go by very quickly.
Barnett Crisp right now leading one of the bigger packs at the moment. All the Corvettes really trying to bundle together. Jack Hedgecock's keeping the purple machine close, 22nd to 10th so far for the 24.
Yeah, this is great stuff from Jack Hedgecock's. Is he going to be able to get the move done early in the lap here? The big problem that Hedgecock's faces is, you know, a lot of these corners are super fast and it's hard to make a move into them. The run into Druid's probably the way to go. And speaking of Druids, is exactly where these guys are now in the battle for second. Looked like one of them had to have a couple of goes turning in. It's never easy when you're right in the middle of a pack. Hedgecock's making the move, trying to at least, on Martin Crisp, but was unsuccessful that time by.
Wagner still holding firm so far. I was about to say, a lot of these drivers too having to think about the relaxing spa day next week.
Yeah, indeed. Spa, of course, is the next round, and I think a lot of the drivers will be very grateful for there being longer straights and more opportunities to slipstream at Spa-Francorchamps. This track, of course, is spectacular and so much fun to drive, but when it comes to racing, and it's like running through a canyon at times. That's a replay, I think, of Jack Hedgecock's there, who was trying round the outside to get by into 10th spot. This is some incredible battling going on.
Yeah, Hedgecock's is absolutely flying. I have to give him huge credit. The speed that's in that car right now. And it can cost you a lot of time if you pass at the wrong segments of this racetrack.
Oh yeah, certainly can. Into Paddock Hill Bend they come once again, and Hedgecock's looks like has nailed the exit there. He'll be safe for the time being. It seems like no one's looking to be any more aggressive at this stage of the race. This is the point where drivers are going to be preparing for their pit stop. They'll probably go very long if they can, try and run the tank out as much as possible, but you're still thinking about that when you're a few laps away. You know, 7 laps to go, 6 laps to go, 5, 4, 3. You're counting yourself down till the time you make your pit stop, and you're just trying to psych yourself up for that difficult pit entry.
Back over to the Hedgecock's grouping. Sean Dickinson, he's on the prowl. Lindquist really backing up the corners compared to everyone else.
This is a great fight. Hedgecox is certainly not free of this battle. And I'm finding it difficult to pick exactly where Dickinson is faster, because it seems like Emmett Lindquist, right in the midst of all of this, is having some problems trying to keep it consistent now that he's at the front of the pack. Looks like he didn't quite get the best exit from Clark Curve there, but there isn't going to be any opportunity for Dickinson to find his way past here.
Does it change the psyche at all when you're all of a sudden thrust upon the lead of the group, or is it just the natural pace that comes into play in that regard?
I think it's a bit of both. I refer back to my remarks in the fixed race. You know, sometimes when you've got a relatively clear track in front of you, that can be a blessing and a curse depending on what kind of driver you are. If you're just focusing on the track, focusing on your points around the circuit that you use to refer to, then you can get some great pace. But some drivers, as I said, do prefer chasing. It seems at the moment that Lindquist is the former option, because he's actually making up some good time on Dickinson right now. Speaking of making up time, how about Nick Ludecki on the back of Connor Wagner? They are closer than they've ever been.
No moves made so far, but do you think it comes down to a fuel-saving tactic at this point if you're lined up astern like this?
Yeah, I think with it being so difficult to make moves at Brands Hatch, sometimes you're better off just lifting and coasting into the corners behind your rivals and saving a bit of fuel that way. But we did see in the fixed race that not many drivers were fuel saving, and I think especially in the case of Jim Feliz, he decided no, it's probably not the best option, because otherwise he's just going to run away with it. That's something that I think the guys behind Connor Wagner are going to be thinking about. Second place is the 51 Ferrari, but the gap has now ballooned out to over 5 seconds, so these guys are just focusing on each other right now.
See some of the biggest movers. Hedgecox has been the talk of the race for that. Already up 12 spots. So far the recovery for Hobson, it's hit a bit of a difference maker, because he did go on the undercut strategy. Seen him get some clean space on track to gain time. So the pit window is open.
Yep, you'll be able to pit any time from, I'd say, about 5 minutes ago, all the way to about 7 minutes to go in the race. So we'll see how that works out for Hoverson. He'll probably be grateful for the extra little bit of clear track, because as we saw, he was having a couple of issues making his way through the rear of the field.
So far, been an interesting one as we're almost at the halfway mark. Of note, Hedgecox has found a way past Crisp in the past couple moments or so. So a lot of intriguing moments starting to pop up here. What stood out the most to you this race so far?
I think, as you said, the battle with Martin Crisp and Jack Hedgecox, it's certainly not gone down in intensity any, and incidents like this one that Andrew Lanning's just had, drivers just dipping wheels off in the circuit. It's lots of little incidents, I think, that define the race for me, not necessarily one big incident.
The little things, they add up and become one big thing, if you think about it that way. But still, pit stops are around the corner within the next 8 to 10 minutes or so as well. And right now, everyone's staying as a pack. Same for the 9th place battle. This is how things develop there. See on the replay how things develop for Hedgecox.
Yeah, Hedgecock's certainly developing nicely here, and he's actually gotten a good run. Now he's got a few car lengths and then some. Martin Crisp trying his best to catch up, but it seems like now Hedgecox is by, he can use that clear air well to his advantage.
Crisp just let him on go, although he did try and fight it a little bit at the time. That in turn, seeing Hedgecox now pull away in live action by 7 car lengths. So, all the way back up to the leaders. They're starting to reach lap traffic now. David Mendonca, a lap down, is still in the race. He ended up having to get some repairs done by several minutes.
Yeah, good to see that David's back in, but yeah, as you said, it's not ideal for him. 49 seconds in the box, and we've also had some big issues for Ethan Bass as well. I'm not too sure what happened to him in the number 52, but yeah, he's a few laps down now and has had some big problems somewhere along the line. Shame for Ethan. You know, he's a long-time campaigner in the Ford GT, but now that car's been replaced by the Mustang. It looks like he's having to get used to a new car and not entirely going smoothly for him at Brands Hatch.
It's been a bit of a battle so far for him in the Ford this season. That's the understatement when it comes to that. The Fords, we haven't seen too many of them interesting compared to the Corvettes up front, though.
Yeah, I found that interesting as well, because the Mustang and the Corvette came out at the same time. It just seems like the Corvette is the way more popular option in any given GT3 series, and I'm not too sure why that is. Maybe the mid-engine layout is just a little more intuitive for a lot of these drivers who'd be used to driving, say, the Ferrari, even the Porsche, which has the engine a bit more to the rear, but still has some of the same high rotation characteristics.
Yeah, an interesting point. But with 18 minutes to go, Karl Modov, he's ran away by 6+ seconds, by the way. And Modov, dominating driver when it comes to these Tuesday nights. 33 career wins. He's in line possibly for 34. It's been an interesting year so far for Karl.
Yeah, interesting year indeed, and I think he'll there'll be a part of him that's grateful for the issues for his teammate Hoverson, because it looked like Gregory was going to have the measure of the field if he had started up the front, but it's now down to Modov to hold on to that lead, and it looks like he won't be under any pressure whatsoever. This battle for second is still going on between Wagner Ludecky and Holland. Meanwhile, Chris Stouffer looking like we're having a replay of an incident for him, and that was coming into Dingledell, and well, the grass lining the edges of the racetrack claiming another victim.
Able to keep it off the wall, though. That's the bright side. Now under 17 minutes to go. And so, lap traffic not playing a factor here, really. Everyone's been cordial so far, Reese, almost to the point of very cordial. But Modov, he's been cordially running away from the field, catching up to those in the 30s.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point that you raised there. The traffic has been very polite, I have to say, when it's been a factor. Looks like Modov is going to be catching up to Ethan Bass at the moment, who's out on track at the moment. Our director Ramiro saying Modov has an F1 engine. Well, you're not too far off. The Lamborghini has a 3 and something liter V10 engine in the middle of the car. So go back about 20 years or so, and you'll find that car maybe does have some F1 heritage.
Interesting to say the least, but back to the air pack. Expecting drivers to peel off for the next couple minutes here. Holland's dropping off of touch. The Bone also doing the same thing. Starting to see some drop off in this pack.
Yeah, big drop-off. Modov has been able to continue some lovely, consistent runs, but the other drivers in the pack for second have not been able to match his times. And I'm just talking about their last lap times, to say nothing of their fastest. Modov, fastest lap, 121.8. No one else has been able to get into the 121s.
Absolutely flying with that purple lap. It's going to make him untouchable likely for the rest of this one. But with 15 minutes now to go, looking back up to the battle for second. No peel-offs yet, but Wagner holding serve.
Yep, they're going to be coming up to the lap traffic pretty soon. Thomas Rep and Ethan Bass, our leader, has just made his way past them and doesn't seem to have lost all that much time. It's all about the exit here, coming onto the back straight and up to Hawthorne's Bend, one of the most terrifying corners on the circuit apart from Paddock Hill. You know, you can't see the corner exits going across the top of the track here. The side of the track is lined by trees. The corner entries have no margin for error, to say nothing of the exits as well. Means that drivers like Nick Ludecki can make up bulk time in that section, as he's just done. He's right on the back of Connor Wagner now. Through Sterling's, Wagner gets a better exit.
Able to stay in line though, but no swaps. Battle for fifth also popping back. Well, the Bones stayed in that spot for now. Currently seeing some distance between him and some of the others. Expecting pit stops the next couple seconds here for this pack.
Well, yeah, Fernando Jaquez has jumped into the lane, actually. First of our top 10 to go for that. Emmett Lindquist and Aidan Young also bringing themselves in, as well as Arnaud Geneste. So, yeah, this is the first real call to the pit lane for a lot of these drivers, and keeping an eye on the battle for second. Will we see any of these drivers throw a spanner into the works and try to go a lap longer?
Expecting that potentially for some. We've seen though in the fixed race, the undercuts, depending on the person, didn't really work out. The overcut worked well for those able to save a lot of time in the stalls.
There'll be a lot of time saved indeed, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on this fight. Wagner and Ludecki have found themselves battling hard and still maintaining pace, but David Holland's been on the outside looking in, and he'll be licking his lips if they come together. They all avoid the pits this time around. No one else is coming to the pit lane on this lap, so that little group that we saw coming into the lane, probably the outlier for the time being, but just as I say that, in comes Chris Sung from 6th.
First one in, so the pit window is wide open for the front runners. Decky starting to push a fair bit though. Starting to really try and provide pressure, try and force Wagner into mistakes before they get to heavy traffic.
The fuel is low, the tyres are well up to temperature and will last to the end of the race. This is the perfect time for Ludecki to be pushing, try and force a mistake from Wagner, try to take his mind off nailing the pit entry and maybe force an error that way. It's always interesting how the race pans out when there's a mandatory pit stop involved. When do you start pushing? When do you start making the moves? Ludecki's been very close behind Wagner for the majority of this race, and it's just seemed static for the most part, but man, he is really dialing it up now.
Yeah, just staying right to the rear end. Do they duck in this time though?
Our leader will.
Yeah, and so will Wagner. Held up Ludecki a little bit. Ludecki set free, Holland is in. So Delta Sport all in.
Big call. Let's see if it works out for them. Nick Ludecki will fall to the lead of the race. Now, a Porsche stayed out in the battle for podium positions in the fixed race in the form of Jim Feliz. Is it going to work out the same way for Nick Ludecki? Is this a mistake that'll put him even further behind? We'll have to wait and see. The pit stops are complete, and looks like Connor Wagner, 11 seconds stopped in the box. David Holland, 10.6, but just seems to me like the gap is roughly the same between them. Modoff has completed his run through the lane, and looks like a fairly typical pit stop run for him too.
That leaves just a couple yet to take their service, including Wadecki, Palacio, and Clark. Wagner, 10.7. Modoff, despite running away, 9.4.
Yeah, that's a very good time there from Modoff. Thanks very much for that, Ramiro, because the timing on my end was not showing a pit stop time at all for Modoff. I think with how far into the lead he was, he might have just fuel saved on his own, maybe just controlling the pace and making sure he only put the minimum amount of fuel to get to the end.
Ledecky is now into the pit lane, so we'll sacrifice the race lead coming up here. Already trying to rev up and fire up. Some drivers as short as 8.5 seconds of the stall. It's about 8.6.
That's a very good stop from Ledecky. I'll be interested to see if that puts him in trouble in terms of fuel load at the very end of the race, but I'm sure that he would have made the calculations, and well, he is going to make a massive gain on the drivers he was fighting with. Wagner and Holland now looks like about 1.5 to 2 seconds further back.
Good call indeed by the 16 car. So David Holland now having to work with his teammate. Can they find a way to close? That's going to be an interesting thing. The open wheelers now working together. Holland a little bit off.
Yeah, seems like Holland's had some trouble getting back up to pace. I mean, at the very least, his lap out of the pits was tiny bits faster than Conor Wagner, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like he's able to get back up to it like he wanted to. Meanwhile, replay for Jason Allen, and, well, that's something we've seen a few times before tonight. Entry into Sterling's, catching the grass. You want to try and widen the entry to the corner as much as possible, but you can't do that at Brands Hatch.
Yeah. There's been very minimal mistakes, though, this race, I've noticed. Not too many crashes compared to the last one.
Yeah, I've found this has been a very sedate race in terms of incidents compared to the fixed race earlier on tonight, but I'm not complaining. We've had some great displays of driving, but oh dearie me, that was a big lose there for David Holland. He's going to put himself in trouble from Brandon Tabone.
Yeah, four-wheel driving to the sand is not great. How about four-wheel taking the 1X?
Here we go then. Is this going to work out for Brandon, who is fresh out of the pits himself? He actually pitted on the same lap as Wagner and Holland, so he's got a lot to play for here. Pretty much, faster pit stop time actually for Brandon. 9.3 seconds. I think the only car to go faster than that in the box was Nick Ledecky, who's running in second place, and of course our leader Carl Modoff.
Battle for 10th yet again on screen, by the way. And you know who's taken over 10th at all this? Rob Clark, who was involved in that stack of once teammates earlier. Lindquist jumped. Martin Chris. Also, guess what? Hobson has a chance for a top 10.
Yeah, we haven't been keeping track of Hoverson for the last few laps, but he's absolutely on a ringer right now. Martin Crisp currently sitting there in 12th position, and these guys are all in a battle. He's making up some great time as Hoverson. 13th place at the moment. Considering he started from the pits, that's an incredible drive.
The 123.2 is not as quick as Modoff on the pace today, but he has been able to knock down the positions. He is going for a lunge. All of a sudden, up the inside, and Druids gets the give and take.
Lovely move there. That was textbook there from Hoverson, and I think Crisp was well aware that that move was over by the time they got to the corner exit. A little bit more clear air for Hoverson before he catches up to Emmett Lindquist. The pace that Gregory is running, I mean, not quite as quick as you said as Carl Modoff, but still quite a ways ahead of what we're seeing from the guys around him.
Has the chance very clearly to get a chance at least for a top 10 here. Compared to those around him, by the way, he's been running, well, the same ballpark last time by, but has been able to get to the 122s. That's been the rapid pace. So, just has to take his time, but 5 minutes to do it. If he wants the top 10, just needs to get 2 more spots to do it. His teammates continue to run up front. 1, 3, and 4 teammates.
Yeah, Nick Ludecki's still in second place in the Porsche, and as I said before, I'll be interested to see if he's actually put enough fuel in the car to get to the end of the race. I mean, he has a nice gap to play with, and it doesn't look like he's losing too much time out there. Having said that, Connor Wagner has absolutely piled on the aggression, running nearly 0.3 faster on the previous lap, and not only was Wagner faster than Ludecki, he was also faster than Holland here.
That's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. 4 minutes to go on the clock, about 3 estimated laps to go. Here's a look back over to the race leader. 7+ seconds. He's lost a couple tenths here and there, but Modov, he's had no mistakes this entire race. He's been perfect.
Yeah, it's been stellar from Karl Modov. Took advantage of there being no Gregory Hoverson at the front of the field at the start, and just controlling the race from here. He hasn't been under any pressure whatsoever. That Delta Sport Lamborghini is looking supreme around here.
Supreme, strong, mighty, but Delta Sport as a whole going to be very happy with the performances. 2 of their open wheel specialists, 3 and 4, that's a big race for both of them.
Yeah, massive race, and they'll be using a lot of their experience to get that result. 3 minutes remaining on the clock, and it looks like Wagner has absolutely left David Holland behind. There's still battles going on deeper in the field, though. The battle for 22nd. Carl Robertson at the front of this one in his Corvette. We have Jeff Carollo and Josh Spears behind him, who are both up 8 positions each. There's been some big movers in the midfield.
This is for 3rd step on the AM podium, mind you. Just seen there, Carollo, Spears, and Moore have stayed queued up together. But still, expecting 2 to go. In fact, already coming around, possibly to the white flag next time by. The rest of these drivers. The Bone needs to be able to put together some absolute flyers if he wants a chance to rip this away from Holland.
Yeah, he's got a lot to play for here. The fight seems to be in his favor by just about 0.2 of a second on the last lap. 122.6 versus a 122.8 for David Holland. As we keep an eye on Kyle Robertson, who's at the front of this train, 3rd place in AM right now. He's got a lot of pressure behind, but he is eyes fully forward, focused on trying to grab at that 22nd spot. We'll keep an eye on that battle as things go forward, but back to the battle between Holland, Tabone, and now Chris Song as well. Looks like David Holland's actually gotten some pace back on this lap.
Just enough of a cushion to where, unless there's a massive slip up, it's going to become very, very difficult. Let's put it that way. The 22 car to close up the gap right now with about a minute to work with. Coming around to that 1 minute, expecting white flag this time. Karl Modov is taking the white currently. So this is the final time around for these battles.
Yep, no time left. You've got to make your moves now, and if you're too far behind, like it seems Tabone is, then you've just got to hope that David Holland is going to make a mistake and you can grab 4th spot. The battles have certainly calmed down throughout the field, not seeing them as close as they were before the pit cycle, but anything can happen on the final lap, especially at Brands Hatch. We've seen drivers being taken out by such minor errors, and no one is immune.
Especially with some of the incidents going on in the backdrop with Chris Swan going off a bit. Lindquist is also lost time as of late. But for Karl Modov, he continues to add on to the all-time winningest category for Tuesday nights. He's been outright dominant from the onset. 8+ seconds quicker than the field. A career day for Ludecky, but it's still Modov who'll come to the final sector. And lap chase at Allen on the way to taking the checker flag. Carl Modov, for the third time this season, will take a victory. This time he gets it done at Brands Hatch here at the PRL here tonight.
Yeah, and what a lead it is. 8.8 seconds, the gap in the end. Nick Ludecky with a fantastic drive and managing to nab second in the Porsche with that lovely short pit stop, and it looks like Wagner's going to complete the podium there. Strong drive in the Ferrari. If you're interested in Gregory Hoverson, well, you'll be happy to know that he has worked his way back up to 11th place. Wasn't quite able to get past Rob Clark to the line, but an excellent recovery from the 115.
Very quietly, Miles Brown led the entire way at AM class. He'll take the checker flag. The 222 picks up the AM victory. He does it by 3+ seconds after the charge by Devin Brock.
Great job from Miles Brown indeed, and it looks like Kyle Robertson is going to hold off Jeff Carollo for that third place in the AM standings, only separated by a few tenths of a second at the line, and that is going to be the rest of our lead lap cars just across the line now. It looks like Aaron Beaver's going to be among the last to do it. But man, what a race. Certainly a bit of a slow burner at times, but some lovely consistent action all the way through.
The rest of the field already crossed the stripe. 30 drivers finish on the lead lap in this series tonight. In turn, it goes to Carl Modov in dominating fashion. PRL here for the sprint series. So on that note, let's take a look at the racing results. Modov, Ludecky, your top two. Wagner rounds out the top three. David Holland finishes off in 4th spot tonight. The Bone in the top 5. So on Kaz, Palacio, Hedgecox, and Clark, your top 10 on the racetrack. 11th spot went to Hoverson on his recovery drive. Martin Crisp 12. Dickinson, Lindquist. Then it's Young, Williams, Genest. Your winner at AM, Brown, Simpson, and Brock, your top 20. Noah Anderson finished off in 21st. Third on the AM podium, Kyle Robertson, holding back a late charge for Jeff Carollo. Drake Smith, Joshua Spears, Dakota Knapp, Hodgson, Sheriff, Beaver, and Rep, your top 30. In the top 40, and amongst your final drivers, Allen, Mendonca, Rilla, one lapped out. Christopher and Ethan Bass, the last to finish. Caron, Lanning, Stewart, Cantonio, and Jennings, your DNFs. Modov, a fastest lap. That's all talked about the running order as we wait for the drivers to make their way over. Your thoughts on tonight, Reese?
Man, I'm really happy with how it went. Honestly, really entertaining night of racing. The fixed race was certainly the one to watch for action and incidents, but for displays of fantastic driving, going for the open one. I mean, Modov just untouchable at the front. Brilliant recovery from Gregory Hoverson after his technical issues, and Nick Ludecky pulling a strategy masterclass to get second.
Few drivers now standing on by. Why don't we catch up with your race winner tonight, Carl Modov? Carl, you add on to the totals here tonight. Dominating victory. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel good. I had more time to prep for this week, so I was feeling good around the track. The car felt nice to drive. It's a bummer for Greg. He dropped before the race start and missed the grid. So that was, it feels a little less satisfying to win, knowing the guy that was on pole didn't make the grid. Not due to his technical issue, so that kind of was a bummer. I would have liked to have battled it out with him, but all things considered, the car felt great, pace was nice, so yeah, great race. Really stoked to be able to pull off another victory.
And that makes it now winning about a third of the races this season, 3 out of 4. The only time you didn't win so far this season was when you didn't start race number 2. How would you describe what's been a dominating run for you so far?
Yeah, honestly, it's going great. I literally entered this race knowing that it's a busy time of year around here, and I wasn't going to have a ton of time to prep, so I was kind of just entering just to run for fun. And now I'm just, maybe I need to do that more often. It's going good. The car, I've done a lot of laps in a Lambo recently, so feels really comfortable driving the car, and it seems to be quick across a range of tracks so far. So looking forward to the rest of the season. Looking forward to having more battles, and it's pretty stoked the way the season's going. 3 out of 4, I definitely can't complain.
Your thoughts on Spa next week?
Spa, I think, will actually be pretty tough. I love the track, and I think I'm really good there, and I think the car will be pretty competitive there. But it's also the 24 hours coming up, and I'm not going to be running that, so I know there's going to be some sleepers, just the amount of time people put into the special events. So I'm expecting there to be some names, some really fast guys next week in a really competitive field. So looking forward to it. That's what I'm here for, is the competition. And hopefully next week we have a nice battle up front, and just put on a good race and have some fun.
Any shout-outs you'd like to give on this one?
Yeah, thanks to you guys for being here to announce PRL. Thanks to Delta Sport, my teammates, and thanks to my friends, family, wife, my 2 cats for watching. Everyone cheering me on. So thanks, guys.
Karl Mordoff coming away with the win tonight. He does it by 8.8 seconds. Now we also have your AM winner standing on by. Joining us now with Race Gardner, it's Miles Brown.
Hey, what's going on? It is indeed. Miles, congratulations on the AM class victory there. Solidly in the midfield for a lot of the race. It seemed quiet for you from our perspective, but from behind the wheel, it was probably anything but.
Yeah, definitely. It was a pretty tough race overall. I think we did good keeping the tires in check. Thanks to Drivetrainer Motorsport for helping me with the setup. And also me shirts as well. But overall pretty tidy race, I think. So happy to have gotten this far through it, and with the rough start to the season, I think this is what we definitely needed as a team. So I'm happy with what we did. And Kyle, my teammate, actually podiumed in AM class as well. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, excellent result for the team indeed. Looking forward in the season, of course, we go to Spa next week, but it's going to be interesting to see how things stack up at the likes of Mugello and Imola as well. Kind of similar to Brands Hatch in that they have these fast corners that come thick and fast. So do you think you might be facing the same kinds of challenges there as you did here?
Well, the Corvette's like a pretty new car, so we're still just figuring out what it's good at and what it's not good at. It can be a little tough to figure out what to do with it in the high speed zones, but I'm determined the team and us will figure it out.
Awesome stuff. Well, big congratulations once again, Miles, and hopefully you're here next week again.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Lovely stuff from Miles Brown. He did point out that his teammate Kyle Robertson made his way onto the AM class podium, and it looks like, Justin, we're going to have a chance to chat to him as well.
Yes, indeed. Kyle, how are you feeling about a team double podium for the AM side?
I'm elated. That was, after a rough start to the season, that was some really good medicine for the team. Definitely needed that one.
What's it been like in where you've been racing on this season? Because from what we've seen, it can be pretty chaotic.
Yeah, it's definitely chaotic out there. Especially today. Today was full concentration. I had to try and keep on Jeff behind me. It's really competitive in the midfield. As you can see, I think with qualifying, the top 20 cars were split by a second. I think the top 30 were like a second and a half. Like, it's a really, really tight field. So it's concentration the whole time.
So what are your thoughts on Spa coming up next week?
I love Spa. It's going to definitely be interesting. We're still trying to figure out this Corvette. It's a new car, but it's definitely entertaining. It's rewarding trying to developing our own setups and understanding this car. I don't know if it'll be the same type of setup as we have now, because those long straights, you definitely need to have some wing out of it. but I'm definitely looking forward to the race and getting it set up ready and getting to next week.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for the time, Kyle. Congratulations on the podium for AM.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Kyle Robertson taking the time to speak with us. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to speak with us tonight during post-race coverage here on Race Spot. But as mentioned, Race, it's a spa day next time. After all, the 24 hours coming up for the iRacing side. That's going to make things interesting for the drivers for the PRL next week.
It certainly is, and drivers will be using that as preparation for sure. Really looking forward to seeing how everything works out at Spa. It's going to be a quick track with plenty of spectacular driving on display. The slipstream will be obviously a lot stronger than it was here at Brands Hatch, so looking out for some big moves into La Source, into Lacombe and Malmedy, maybe even through Blanchimont as well. Hopefully the drivers will be able to keep it stuck.
8:30 p.m. will be the start time as well for the coverage, July the 23rd. Be sure to tune in here on Race Spot to see GT3 action. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye for tonight's coverage from Brands Hatch. For my co-announcer tonight, Reese Gardner, for producer and Ramiro Cisneros, I'm Justin Brent saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. You've been watching Race Spot's coverage of the PRL GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series from Brands Hatch. We'll see you next time from Spa.